Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, my name is Advocacy and today I will present a little bit about our interactions. In the late of May 2024, the peaceful neighborhood of Kampung Makmur faces a sudden upheaval. Homes built on a land owned by the Selangor State Development Corporation, known as PKNS, were slated for demolitions. On May 14, 2024, the High Court in Shah Alam issued an order for the demolition of the houses, and the demolitions took place on May 27 and 28 following the court directive. And some of the people say that we were not given notice or time to prepare. It's all happened so fast. And they also say that many of us didn't know where to go and what to do next, and it was chaotic and stressful. Residents claim they are not given sufficient notice or time to prepare, resulting in the significant distress. The eviction process was marked by the tense confrontations between authorities and residents during the widespread criticism. The incident underscored the need for more compassionate and organised urban developments and land reclamation projects, and ensuring affected communities receive a proper support and alternative. The event in Kampung Makmur served as a stark reminder of the human cost of development moving forward. Okay, let's move on to our case chronology. The case started in 2006, which is around 2006, the Gombak residents received their first eviction of notice, as the land they occupied belonged to the Selangor State Development Corporation, which is known as PKNS. Following this, the community divided, and some residents accepted the government offers and moved to the alternative housings, while the others, due to the financial constraints or other reasons, chose to remain in Kampung Makmur despite the evictions notice. Furthermore, to 2018 until 2020, in 2018, the evictions issue resurfaced, and the residents received a second evictions notice, likely a reminder or an attempt to restart the evictions processes. While in 2020, a significant court case took place, resulting in a verdict against the residents. The court ordered a full evacuation of the area by the August 2023, suggesting that PKNS may have filed for a legal actions to enforce the evictions. And for 2023 and 2024, in August 2023, it is unclear if the evictions took place by the court order deadline. But on May 14, 2024, a High Court order authorized the evictions of the remaining residents, likely because they hadn't vacated by the deadline. So on May 28 and May 29, the houses in Kampung Makmur are demolished, enforcing the court ruling. Following this, the controversy arose as the residents claimed they were rushed out, given minimal compensations, and struggled to find alternative housing, highlighting the human cost of the development project. Okay, let's move to the third chapter, which is the stakeholder involved in this case. First and foremost, which is already I mentioned before, which is Selangor State Development Corporation, which is known as PKNS. As the legal proprietor of the land, Selangor State Development Corporation (PKNS) hold a vested interest in developing the land in accordance with its plans. It is conceivable that PKNS may have transferred ownership of the land to a private entity, thereby introducing an additional dimensions to their stake in the matter. For the second stakeholder involved is Selangor State Government. The state government bear the responsibility to adhere to due process concerning matter of land ownerships and evictions. It is conceivable that they are engaged in mediating the situations, potentially offering the relocations assistance to the affected parties. Conversely, they may have also encountered criticism for the perceived manner in which the eviction process transpired. And the third stakeholder involved is Response Resource Sendirian Berhad. Okay, what is Response Resource Sendirian Berhad? Response Resources Sendirian Berhad has emerged as a key entity in this project, as PKNS, the legal proprietor of the land, sold it to this private developer. Consequently, Response Resources Sdn Bhd possess a vested interest in assuming possessions of the cleared land to advance its development project, which people may know they want to do a condominium. They want to build condominium. And lastly is Kampung Makmur resident itself. Like we know, the primary stakeholder in this scenario, of course residents of Kampung Makmur, who have endured the eviction and the subsequences demolitions of their residences. Their interests are deeply vested in the remaining within the locality and securing equitable compensations for any displacement they may have experienced during this problem.
So moving on, I will be explaining on the issues and the rationale behind the issue on the Kampung Makmur, as well as the planning theory approach that is suitable for this case. So the first underlying issue is that there is an unclear communications and timelines, as there is a discernible of gap exists between the issues of the initial evictions notice, which presumably start around 2006, and the subsequent court order was followed in recently 2020 and 2024, where there are now demolitions being held on. So there is no clear evidence on where the process of the overalls. And the second is the displacement of the resettlement challenge itself, where the situation underscore the challenge residents that they encounter during the eviction process, including while they are searching for the affordable housing, just because they doesn't have the capital to actually relocate to another place due to the certain circumstance. And the third point is that there is perhaps a lack of transparency in land ownerships and development plans, as the residents that live in the area, though they might be called as illegal residents because they are actually settling on someone else's land, but they have been living there for a considerable amount of time, and there might be a question about whether the resident itself, maybe right now it's already the second to the third generation, if they are really aware of the situation of the place in terms of the outland ownerships. And the third one is though that Selangor government has offered a subsidized compensation in term for Rumah Selangor co-provisions, but some residents might not be able to afford it because they doesn't really have the capital, the money to afford it, so they end up having no means of to relocate, and they just have to be forced to stay in the place. So as for the planning approach, we decided that we will opt for the advocacy planning. Well, advocacy planning is when it comes to actively supporting a cause of principle and often aiming to influence the decision-making process in favor of marginalized communities, which actually reflects on the case of the Taman Seri Makmur right now. So the aim is to, as well as mentioned before, is to advocate for the marginalized group. With the methodology, the general methodology will be the policymakers or anyone involved, the stakeholders will have to work closely with the community groups, grassroots organizations, and non-profit to actually understand the needs and desire of the community. What's the community want? What's the community is facing? What's the challenge? So it will be an evidence-based approach And for the principle, it will be rooted in the belief that planning should serve as a common ground and address social inequalities. Though this principle, the advocacy planning, might be a little bit time consuming, and due to the process is very time consuming, quite tedious. You have to get to know a lot of stakeholders, get a lot of agreements, but it will be a very good opportunity to advocate for those marginalized, and it will be balanced and neutral without any playing favor or anything that will be deemed unsuitable for the marginalized group. So that is for the issues, rationale, as well as the planning approach. So we will be moving on to the next presentation.
Assalamualaikum, and thank you, Haziq, for the insightful information regarding on the advocacy planning approach. So moving on, let's take a look on how are we going to apply such approach into real-life situations as a planning officer in Majlis Perbandaran Selayang. Within this context is Kampung Sri Makmur Gombak. So before that, let's take a look into the advocacy approach outline. So we've detailed out the strategic framework for the advocacy planning approach. So within this framework, there are 7 items. The first would be to identify the issue. So we need to know the reasons why the eviction happened, the affected population, and also the potential consequences that will occur. Second is to set clear goals. So we could determine the objectives that we aim to achieve through advocacy. The third being understanding stakeholders. So we could understand their interests, perspectives, and also the levels of influences. So the fourth is develop a strategy through strategic plans. And the fifth would be mobilize resources. So we should assess the resources that will channel into funding, expertise, volunteer support, and access to media channels. So the sixth would be engage in advocacy actions. So we should implement advocacy actions based on our strategic plan that I've mentioned priorly. And the last being monitor and evaluate. So we should continuously monitor progress and evaluate the effectiveness of advocacy actions. So moving on, let's take a look at the strategic objectives. So the first being ensure compliance with legal and procedural requirements. We should ensure that the eviction process followed by the state government in Gombak adhered to all legal and procedural requirements. The second is strengthen community engagement. So MPS could work to strengthen community engagement and participation in local planning. The third is facilitate dialogue and mediation. So MPS could play a role in facilitating dialogue and mediation between the state government and the affected community. The fourth is explore alternative solutions. So this may include identifying alternative land for development projects. The fifth is promote sustainable urban development. MPS could integrate principles of sustainable urban development into its planning process to ensure that future development projects prioritize the needs of local communities. And the last is advocate for residents' rights. So MPS could advocate on behalf of the affected residents to ensure that their rights are protected and their voices are heard in decision-making processes. As a planner committed to advocacy planning principles, the situation happening at Kampung Sri Makmur Gombak underscores the importance of balancing legal requirements and also the compassion of community engagement. So ultimately, achieving a balanced and just outcome for this place requires a holistic approach that respects legal frameworks while actively mitigating social impacts and preserving community integrity. So that's all from us. Thank you.